If Inception was Christopher Nolan putting a twist on the heist genre, then Tenet is the same thing but for spy movies. This is Nolan's version of a James Bond film, but he once again uses the concept of time to shake up a genre. And he does this to present questions about free will and how we interact with both past and future generations. We're talking all about it this week in Kaden's Movie Club. Spoilers ahead, so if you haven't seen it, beat it. The story starts at an opera house in Ukraine. A group of insurgents attack the civilians at the opera, so official government agents show up. Hidden amongst those agents are some secret CIA agents, one of which is our protagonist. We find out that this whole operation is a cover-up where both sides are trying to capture a double agent that's carrying an important package. The protagonist believes the package is weapons-grade plutonium, but when he finds it, it looks really strange. He hands off the plutonium to his decoy team, but on his way out of the opera, he's captured and tortured for information. He chooses to swallow a cyanide pill rather than betray his mission, but the pill is fake, and this turns out to be a test. The protagonist, which is the character's official name by the way, is recruited into an organization even more secret than the CIA. He's told almost nothing about it, except that it's called Tenet, and the fate of the entire world is at stake. He then meets one of Tenet's scientists, who gives us our first big exposition scene. In most time travel movies, we're used to the characters transporting themselves to specific moments in time. In this story, the characters can't skip over time, but they can reverse the direction in which they're progressing through time. This is done by inverting their entropy, and it can be done to objects as well.
One of these bullets is like us, traveling forwards through time. The other one's going backwards. Can you tell which is which? How about now?
Put really simply, the concept of entropy is how we explain why certain physical processes happen the way they do, like why air leaks out of a tire or why ice melts. Things naturally go from order to disorder, or from low entropy to high entropy. In the world of Tenet, someone in the future discovers how to invert an object's entropy. The result is now that object starts moving backward in time because its process of cause and effect is reversed.
You have to have dropped it.
How can it move before I touch it?
From your point of view, you caught it, but from the bullet's point of view, you dropped it.
But cause comes before effect.
No, that's just the way we see time.
The protagonist has to know somewhere in his mind that seconds into the future he will drop the bullet in order for it to fly back into his hand. Is the protagonist choosing in this moment to make this happen, or does it line up because it was always going to happen?
Well, what about free will?
That bullet wouldn't have moved if you hadn't put your hand there.
This is the debate of free will versus determinism. Is there power in our choices, or are the outcomes of the universe inevitable? People approach that debate in different ways, but as a theme in this movie, I think Nolan is addressing how we feel about the state of the world around us. How are we supposed to stop world powers from polluting the earth or waging war? It can feel like we're asking the same question as in the free will versus determinism debate: do my choices even matter? The scientist goes on to explain that they started finding inverted weaponry being used in the world and realized that somebody out there was receiving inverted munitions from the future. So it's up to the protagonist to find out who and why. He links up with Neil, a British agent who seems to know way more about the protagonist than he should. Together, they infiltrate the base of an arms dealer, Priya. She reveals that she's also a secret member of Tenet, and that inverted munitions are coming from Andrei Sater, a Russian oligarch. He's communicating with an organization in the future referred to simply as antagonists and acting on their behalf. To get to Sater, the protagonist decides to get close to his wife, Kat. Kat's marriage with Sater is an abusive relationship, but she can't leave because he's blackmailing her. She works as an art appraiser and recently authenticated a rare and valuable piece that was actually a forgery. Kat tells the protagonist that the painting is kept at a free port in Oslo. This is basically a high security facility that wealthy people can use to store and transfer valuable goods. Even though Sater doesn't care about art, he goes to the free port often, so the protagonist and Neil break into the facility under the guise of finding Kat's painting, but really searching for whatever Sater is keeping there. And it turns out to be a turnstile, the device that reverts an object's entropy. Suddenly, two agents come out of each side of the turnstile, seemingly attacking them. And the one the protagonist fights is inverted, so he's fighting with someone who's going backward in time. After the mission is over, Priya explains how the turnstile works. The two men that came out of it were actually the same man going in two different directions of time. She also reveals that the mission at the opera at the beginning of the movie was actually run by Sater because he was trying to capture the plutonium. He failed, and it's currently in the hands of the local government who are planning to transport it soon. The protagonist uses his new connection with Kat to get close to Sater. He convinces Sater that they should work together to steal the plutonium, which launches this heist. The protagonist has no real intention of giving Sator the plutonium, but somehow Sator finds out about this and shows up using Kat as a hostage. He's also wearing a breathing mask and his car is going backward, which can only mean one thing. He's inverted. To make things even more complicated, there ends up being other people on this highway that are also inverted, but we're not sure why yet. To save Kat, the protagonist hands over the plutonium. He and Kat are then captured by Sator and interrogated in a warehouse with another turnstile. Sator demands to know where the plutonium is, which is weird because we just saw the protagonist give it to him. Agents of Tenet show up to save the protagonist, so Sator escapes into the turnstile, which makes it seem like he disappears. But what we're actually seeing is the moment where his two progressions through time meet up. When he escapes into the turnstile, he immediately starts progressing backward through time, which is what we were seeing moments ago, so now it just looks like he's gone.
Where did he go?
Past.
During the interrogation, Sator injured Kat with an inverted round, which causes her wound to behave differently than normal. To properly heal, she has to be inverted. So the protagonist, Neil, and Kat all go through the turnstile. The protagonist uses this opportunity to try and recover the plutonium, so we see the entire car chase we just saw from a new perspective. The person driving that random inverted car was and is the inverted protagonist. And his forward self saw his reverted self, so he tossed the plutonium into the back of that car and tossed Sator an empty box. The only problem is the inverted Sator saw this happen, so he recovers the plutonium anyway. And by doing so, he just executed a temporal pincer movement. A pincer movement is a military strategy where you attack both sides of an opposing army at the same time. A temporal pincer movement is a similar maneuver but in time. One team progresses through an operation normally, but then you have another team going through the same operation backward. If the teams then communicate to each other through time, they can tell each other what's going to happen. So at the same time that inverted Sator was going backward through the car chase, there was a normal version of him sitting in the warehouse by the turnstile being told what would happen by his henchmen. This is a real head scratcher because he's observing the event to give his future self knowledge of the event, but his future self is already in the event because his future self will go backward in time. It's a chicken and the egg scenario. Which came first? Neil repeatedly says throughout the movie, what happens happened, meaning you can't change the past. The events in this story are always a closed time loop, so that theme comes back. Do our choices even matter if everything seems to happen exactly the same? The movie refuses to answer this question, but presents it to the audience instead. Once Kat has been healed, our three characters have to uninvert, but they can't go back to the same turnstile because Sator controls it. So they head back to the one in the Oslo Freeport, and this is where we discovered that the inverted man the protagonist fought was himself. The whole idea of inverted entropy means the cause and effect is messed up. The forward protagonist fought back against the inverted one because he felt he was being attacked, and vice versa. There is no start or end, it's a closed loop. By this point, Neil has revealed the package they've been after is not actually plutonium. It's one of 9 pieces of an algorithm that when put together will allow someone to invert the entropy of the entire world. In the future, the Earth is dying from environmental collapse, and the antagonists in that future believe the only way to reverse it would be to invert the Earth's entropy. Tenet believes this will cause the past to get wiped out. So essentially there's now a war of survival between these groups in the past, or our present, and the future. The scientist in the future that discovered the algorithm believed it was too dangerous to use, so they made it into a physical form, split it up, and hid the inverted pieces at nuclear sites all around the world so humans couldn't retrieve them. The antagonists in the future then had to rely on people in the past to retrieve the pieces for them. So they recruited Sator because he lived in Stalsk 12, an abandoned Soviet city that was the site of a nuclear explosion. And now that Sator has all the pieces, he's going to hide the completed algorithm in Stalsk 12, buried deep by a huge explosion so that the future can retrieve it later. Sator will send the location of the algorithm to the future only once he dies. And once we strip away all the time elements from the plot, it feels more familiar. It's in the form of a traditional James Bond movie. The villain is an egotistical maniac set on world destruction, and the hero is a capable spy that secretly has a heart of gold. And then Nolan layers the time elements to give a twist to that old story and pose thematic questions. So in our big finale, the Tenet organization launches their own temporal pincer movement, where they have 2 teams attack Stalsk 12 at the same time. One normal team, the other inverted. The whole point of doing the temporal pincer movement is to make it so they can intercept the algorithm, but still trick Sator into transmitting the coordinates into the future as if his plan worked. That way, the future won't know their plan was unsuccessful until they dig up the site only to find the algorithm is gone. And so this big complicated battle happens with different groups of people going different directions in time. Meanwhile, Kat is going to distract Sator so that he still goes through with his plan. The protagonist and one of the other Tenet agents locate the algorithm in a cave, but they're stopped by one of Sator's henchmen. Right when it seems like they've failed, an inverted soldier sacrifices himself and allows them to take the algorithm just as the cave explodes. And back on the yacht, Kat manages to assassinate Sator as well, so the coordinates are sent. Now that the mission is complete, we find out that Neil has known the protagonist for much longer than we thought. He was recruited in his past by a future version of the protagonist. And as Neil walks away, we notice a piece on his backpack that identifies him as the inverted soldier who sacrificed himself in the cave, who was also there from the beginning helping the protagonist at the opera. Which is happening on the same day as this attack on Stalsk 12. This whole operation is actually part of a larger temporal pincer movement, and the person that's in charge of the whole thing is the protagonist who will go on to create Tenet. Nolan set out to try and create a story that was ultimately a palindrome, and he does this to present questions for the audience. Like all of our time travel movies this month of Movie Club, it's not really about the time travel. Back to the Future is a screwball comedy that used time travel to compare different generations. Looper is a thriller that uses time travel to pit two different versions of the same character against each other and make observations about self-destructive tendencies. About Time is a dramedy that gives its main character the gift of time travel, only to learn the fact that we can't take time back is what makes the moments of our lives so valuable. And finally, Tenet is a spy movie where time travel is used to create a scenario where different generations of humanity are trying to destroy each other. But the main question given to the audience is, do your choices actually matter in all this? How can you have an impact in a world that seems set on a closed loop of destroying itself? Just like the protagonist here, you have no idea the impact you could potentially have in the future by choosing to act now. So we saw 4 filmmakers use time travel as narrative devices to discuss the underlying themes they were really interested in. And I'd love to hear what you thought about Tenet or any of the movies in our lineup. And that wraps up our June Movie Club. Tomorrow I'll be announcing the theme and lineup for July, so stay tuned. And if you want to stay in the know about Movie Club, you know where to go.